7 seconds. This specific calculated survival time emerged years after engineers initially attempted to reverse engineer captured German blueprints. The tactical environment of the jungle rarely aligned with established operational manuals, forcing infantry squads into sudden, close-range encounters. Gunners frequently deployed the weapon directly from the bipod or initiated suppressive fire straight from the hip. A physically capable operator could sustain forward momentum while discharging the weapon to pin down hostile positions. A standard United States infantry squad deployed with 9 to 10 personnel during these dense reconnaissance patrols. Among those men, the individual carrying the primary automatic weapon became the immediate center of gravity for incoming hostile fire. The operator would initiate heavy suppressive fire to break an ambush, expending roughly 550 rounds per minute. Each discharge generated a sharp acoustic signature exceeding 150 decibels, instantly unmasking the position. Opposing combatants immediately registered the distinct sound and the intense muzzle flash illuminating the dark vegetation. Enemy marksmen consequently shifted all available return fire directly toward that single, stationary point of origin. Snipers actively isolated and targeted the machine gunner above almost any other combatant on the field. This deliberate concentration of incoming projectiles reduced the operator to the most vulnerable target in the entire formation. The sheer output volume could halt an enemy advance, but the physical price of providing that suppressive fire remained high. Military training manuals eventually evaluated this operational reality and distributed mandatory survival protocols to the exposed troops. The inherent design flaws rooted in those early foreign prototypes ultimately demanded a new tactical approach on the ground. Instructors ordered gunners to abandon their cover and physically relocate the heavy weapon after every single burst. The Army wanted paratrooper rifle maneuverability. They received a hybrid of two enemy systems. Expectations projected a universal tactical solution. Reality delivered a complex mechanical compromise. Captured blueprints reached American testing facilities. World War II had just ended. Ordnance officers evaluated foreign hardware. The doctrine required equipment standardization. The aging Browning M1919 faced obsolescence. That platform demanded heavy crew operation. It lacked mobility. Engineers sought a portable replacement. The concept dictated solitary deployment capability. They analyzed two distinct trophy platforms. The initial specimen was the MG-42. The secondary unit was the FG-42. Each weapon possessed specific tactical parameters. Engineers extracted technical data. The metrics revealed opposing design philosophies. The MG-42 delivered extreme suppression. Its cyclic rate hit 1,200 rounds per minute. This generated immense barrel heat. The FG-42 prioritized weight reduction. It weighed roughly 4.5 kilograms. This allowed shoulder firing. Designers merged these contradictory concepts. The objective required physical platform integration. Technicians isolated the MG-42 feed mechanism. They stripped the FG-42 overall structure. Components combined. Drafting tables filled. The parts aligned. Tolerances required adjustment. Prototypes integrated these divergent foreign assemblies. Testing commenced. Parts failed. Engineers applied domestic modifications. They altered the gas operating system. They redesigned the trigger group. The M60 designation appeared on paperwork. Protocols mandated specific ballistic metrics. Old calibers faced rejection. Engineers finalized the internal chamber dimensions. The 7.62 mm NATO cartridge secured official structural integration and final deployment approval. How do you extract a superheated barrel when the primary assembly lacks a dedicated lifting handle? The operational temperature regime necessitated regular barrel replacement, yet the engineers introduced a critical structural error. The procedure required gripping the glowing steel through dense asbestos fabric. A cyclic rate of 550 rounds per minute generates extreme friction inside the chamber. Sustained automatic fire pushes the 7.62 mm steel tube past 500 degrees Celsius. This physical reality demanded substantial thermal insulation for any direct skin contact with the forward metal. Gloves degraded under constant heat. The removal sequence required specific physical manipulation of the front hardware during high-stress combat operations. The machine gunner depressed a locking lever located on the right side of the main receiver block. Intense infrared radiation from the metal scorched unprotected hands before direct physical contact even occurred. The standard field equipment kit included a specialized heat-resistant asbestos mitten specifically for this hazardous procedure. Operators gripped the hot steel through the thick mineral fibers and pulled the forward section free. The manufacturing blueprint permanently welded both the folding bipod and the front iron sight to the tube. Extracting the cylinder simultaneously removed the front aiming reference and the primary stabilization platform from the receiver. Inserting a cold replacement tube mechanically negated the previous optical alignment established by the machine gunner. Standard combat engagement distances frequently exceeded 200 meters across open clearings or dense foliage zones. Zeroing retention proved mechanically impossible. Operating without a reliable aiming point rendered accurate target suppression physically unattainable during sustained suppressive fire. Furthermore, the exterior geometry of the locking mechanism created a mechanical failure point during routine ground patrols. The locking lever lacked shielding. The protruding metal catch constantly snagged on thick brush and dense jungle vines during standard movement. External physical pressure depressed the latch and partially released the connection without the gunner even noticing. The heavy front hardware physically detached and struck the dirt the moment the operator initiated firing. Zero gas regulators. Internal pressure dropped as carbon accumulated. Engineers pinned the gas cylinder in place at the factory, leaving shooters without a dial to increase flow. Vietnam delivered humidity exceeding 90%. Carbon sludge mixed with moisture and coated the internal cylinders. While the M16 rifle used direct gas impingement, this weapon relied on a piston. Both designs suffered identical fouling. The internal ballistics initiated a chain reaction. Expanding gas pushed the piston rearward, but carbon friction slowed this travel. The bolt carrier lost momentum. It failed to travel far enough to catch the sear. The firing pin struck the next primer automatically. The weapon fired continuously. Soldiers called this the runaway gun. 10 kilograms of steel bucked. Physical recoil tore the stock from the shoulder. Commanders assigned this machine gun to the greenest recruits, forcing the lowest-ranking infantrymen to carry the heaviest burden. Complex mechanics demanded experienced hands. Novice shooters panicked as the cyclic rate hit 600 rounds per minute. Halting a runaway required physical intervention. The operator grabbed the exposed ammunition belt and twisted the brass chain sideways. This sheared the links. The twisted metal choked the feed tray. If the gunner hesitated, the weapon emptied the box into the tree line. Fouled chambers caused further breakdowns. Dirty brass gripped the chamber walls. The extractor claw ripped the rim off the cartridge. A live round rammed into the blocked chamber. The spent casing remained stuck. 5.56 millimeter bullets ricochet off dense foliage. The heavy 7.62 punches straight through. Penetration dictated combat rules, but kinetic energy demanded mass. Even with functional automatics, the bare weapon was heavy. The base mechanism weighed 10.8 kilograms empty. The design omitted a loaded magazine. Cyclic rate hit 600 rounds per minute. The barrel consumed belts rapidly. Sustained fire required massive reserves. Operators needed a continuous supply. A single rifle cartridge weighed 24 grams. The primary gunner carried 300 rounds. 100 hung directly from the feed tray. Brass and steel links added drag. Shoulders bruised fast. Movement slowed down. Mobility plummeted. An assistant gunner shadowed the operator. He hauled heavy spare barrels. He packed the main ammunition reserve. Linked belts created immense logistical strain. 43 kilograms of metal formed one full load. 2 men hauled this dead weight. The entire squad depended on that volume. Firepower overrode fatigue. Math defined survival. The aggregate ammunition inventory shared strictly between those two primary personnel equaled precisely 1,800 rounds. A combat operator drapes heavy brass belts across his chest in a classic Pancho Villa configuration. The arrangement presents a formidable visual profile, but field reality dictates immediate mechanical failure. To ensure sustained output, infantrymen modified the ammunition feed architecture directly in the operational zone. Standard military doctrine prescribed a dedicated three-man unit to manage the heavy weapon framework. However, combat conditions and dense vegetation forced the reduction of this detachment down to a single designated gunner. Operating alone meant wearing unprotected ammunition links exposed to the external environment. Thick jungle mud and small broken branches routinely lodged inside the open brass retaining loops during patrols. This accumulated debris triggered critical misfeeds and bent the metal components prior to engagement. Field operators required an immediate alternative to the exposed cross-torso transport method. Infantrymen repurposed discarded canvas carriers originally designed for directional explosive devices. The standard olive drab bag for the Model 18 Claymore mine provided an enclosed volume for shielding the cartridges. Communication equipment packs also underwent field conversion to serve as improvised ammunition hoppers. Armorers connected multiple individual segments to bypass the defined limits of standard issue containers. An operator fed a custom 1,000-round belt directly from his modified infantry rucksack into the receiver tray. Modifications extended beyond ammunition logistics, directly into the receiver design. To make a high-tech weapon function reliably, operators required trash. Empty food containers and bent wire became essential upgrades. The pistol grip housing fractured under combat stress, forcing infantrymen to reinforce the hardware manually. Gunners fixed feeding malfunctions by wedging empty C-ration cans beneath the loading tray. These daily meals provided an abundant source of tin-plated steel for frontline repairs. The curved surface corrected the belt entry angle. Brass cartridges scraped against the metal with a distinct clank. The 23-pound M60 lacked a dedicated carry point. Crews solved this deficit with standard coat hangers. They bent wire into handles. Pliers secured rigged loops around the heated barrel. Standard controls presented another mechanical hazard. The push lever safety operated in reverse compared to the M16 rifle. Pushing forward engaged the lock. Muscle memory caused fatal hesitation during sudden ambushes. Switching platforms confused infantrymen under fire. Operators left it off. Crossfire pins the platoon. Richard Pittman grabs a fallen weapon. He moves forward. Frontal assaults prove statistically lethal. North Vietnamese ambush tactics utilize this. Overlapping fire sectors guarantee total lethality. Pittman tests the weapon's endurance. He fires directly from the hip. Incoming enemy return fire continues. The 23-pound receiver takes the stress. Pittman suppresses multiple enemy nests. Point-blank range, barrel temperature spikes. The firing rate stays constant. He drops down. He targets advancing troops. The feed tray cycles normally. The platform operates flawlessly. 7.62 ammunition vanishes. Pittman drops the empty weapon. He retrieves a captured submachine gun. He resumes firing. This action earns the Medal of Honor. The sustained firing cycle leaves the remaining ammunition belt count at exactly 0. Modifications E3 and E4 arrive far too late for the initial waves of draftees. While infantrymen kept weapons running using tape and wire, ordnance engineers cataloged the failure statistics. During 1965, the average replacement deployed without access to these refined variants. The troops managed the baseline models under constant exposure to abrasive grit. The 10-kilogram steel assembly dropped onto the aluminum deck of an extraction helicopter with a heavy metallic thud. The United States Marine Corps viewed the initial performance data with skepticism and resisted the transition. Ground commanders preferred the familiar mechanics of the Browning automatic rifle, fielded since 1918. Old Browning platforms relied on 20-round magazines that restricted continuous fire. The continuous belt-fed mechanism of the M60 changed squad-level suppression tactics despite the persistent design defects. Ordnance boards eventually mandated the adoption across all frontline combat divisions. The silhouette of the transport helicopter hovered against the overcast sky. Heavy brass ammunition belts rested across the canvas harnesses of the departing infantrymen. The stamped metal receiver sat firmly in the hands of the lead gunner. Alongside the UH-1 Huey helicopter and the M16 rifle, this heavy weapon defined the visual footprint of the conflict. Logistics commands withdrew the remaining Browning automatic rifles from active frontline inventories.